So this is going to be a video on playing closed combo. I do not make any claims to be, an amazing closed combo player. I do think I'm pretty good. I think if you ask the really good players, they'll admit I can definitely play. But I have not competed more than a tiny bit at closed trade, and that's clearly where the best closed play happens. And I'm just clearly not at the level of the great closed trade players. So this video is coming from someone who I think is a good closed player, but not an elite closed player. And hopefully we can get games. I'm also not going to be playing my absolute best for a couple reasons. One is I think a lot of closed is about adaptability and showing kind of different looks to opponents so they won't know you have certain patterns. And so I'm going to say a sort of more straightforward game plan than I might go for in an actual game, because I just don't quite want to give certain stuff away. Not that I think I have deep secrets, but I'll say a lot, or I'll try to. But this is also not an area I've talked about a lot, so I don't really know how to talk about it well, because I've done a lot more thinking about how to play open well. But I see the game sort of in three phases. First phase, I like to set up synergy. I think there are players that look to challenge more immediately than I do, but on the first three moves of the game, usually my primary goal is setting up maximal synergy. I want more combo squares than my opponent. I want better combo squares than my opponent. And so my main goal early on is just to set up as much synergy as I can. On moves 4 through 6, I start turning into, instead of just synergy, focusing on how can I challenge my opponent? How can I start putting something out they have difficulty dealing with that plays off the combos I've ideally set up? And then I see stage 3 of the game as kind of the move 7 and 8 period, and 7 through 9 period. You could argue it starts at move 6 or even sooner. Is sort of gaming out all the 50-50 decisions, all the I'm going to threaten this square, and they're going to have to commit to me having this square or that square. All right, we're going to take Kroos's game because I'm not getting a game yet. It's not my favorite rule set for showing these kinds of things, but it's pretty varied. So I think one thing really important on split level sets is if you're on second turn, you do not want to get mechs where you have played a lot of low numbers out, because they'll just have free, easy triple captures at the end. Okay, so our hand's pretty balanced actually. We don't have any super low levels. I think when you watch high-level players play closed, and this is just worth doing, just saying, okay, Amo's playing, or MC is playing, or Great Sephiroth's playing, or Seta's playing, or Ruffles, or whoever. There are obviously other great closed players. Just watch what they do on first turn, and I think you'll find there are 3 main starter types. There's 5, and I think the goal of going in 5 is setting up synergies. There's the half-weak starter, where there is one strong out-facing thing, so there's a little bit of challenge, and one low thing. And one really nice thing about that is you can have one card that takes back comfortably from both sides. It has the plus wall or whatever, the same wall on the strong side, but it can also take the other side. So if you're left with those 2 squares at the end of the game, you're going to have a card that's good for both. One reason that a starter type you don't see, that's not my third type, is strong corners, is you often have to hold on to 2 cards to cover both sides, and then you really will land in bad 50-50 scenarios where you play one of them and then they force you to play in the other square with your other card that it's wrong for. Another problem with strong corners is it's often hard to play next to them, because if they have the combo in the other square, suddenly everything's flipping. While a weak corner, it's much easier to play next to, because you're much less vulnerable to big combos as they lock in cards. So the third type of starter, I think, is kind of pure weak corners. Now here, as I look at my hand, the third and fourth cards I think I want to hold on to. Those are generally the most powerful cards in my hand. So I'd like to get rid of kind of the top or bottom card, and I'd like to either play in 5 or play a weak corner or a half-weak corner. So if something like 7-1-5-5 and 7 jumps out, I can plus wall the 7 multiple ways, but I can't do it with the cards I want to hold on to, because I want my most powerful cards for the end. So I think I'm just going to go for a very weak corner and say, every card of mine but one can take this back both ways. So far, any card in my hand I'm happy to leave for the last move. So this is what I think of as the synergy stage of the game. But on this highly split level rule set, I a setup in 5 isn't going to be as big a deal because I'm probably going to use a weak card first, and its numbers facing out are not going to be that high. I'm not going to have that powerful combo potential, or at least I don't think so. Again, there are much better closed players who could say deeper, better thoughts, but I'm just trying to offer what I'm aware of, and I think using up my weakest card here makes a lot of sense, and is one of the 3 ways I think you'll find good players start closed games most regularly. There are players who find side starters. I think the most common side starter you'll see among the best players are these weird ones where they have a low number facing 5 and a high number facing the 2 corners. But you will also see ones with a high number facing 5 and lower numbers facing the 2 corners. I don't have a good feel for those, and I basically never play them, so I am not one to speak on them. But I do think side corners are viable and closed. I just personally tend to play, I usually play center. I think a lot of good players now you'll find are mostly corner players, and I am not convinced of this. I do not subscribe yet, at least. I tend to think, start of the game, set up maximal synergy. I think I can do that best with a center play. Ruffles has made the argument center lets them direct the game. They get to play the first corner or the first side. That really is something that needs to be interacted with. These are my words, not his, but attempting to paraphrase. I tend to find, however, that if you have good synergy with the center play, have a few ideas for maybe corners that can play off it yourself, you're going to be able to direct the game pretty decently. Okay, so one thing here is which cards do I want to hold on to? I have 2 different cards with a plus in 6. I have no card that double captures in 8 or does anything interesting there. But at this point, again, I think I'm just in the synergy phase of the game, and I'm going to look to try to set more stuff up. I notice 6774 and 6865 and 1877 all have plus walls in 4. So if I could set any of them up to also be really good in 2, that would be nice. Many of them potentially have multi-captures there. So I'm tempted to just take my weakest card, 7155, and chuck it in 1, because all my cards have a single and most have a double capture in 2. I have multiple ways to recapture it from 4 with double captures. It seems appealing to me. Again, these split level sets can't set up quite as much synergy as you can when cards are all from the same level. So at this point, I'm just making sure I can capture stuff. This leads to one big difference. First turn, you're going to get last turn. You're going to want stuff available to be captured. Second turn, you are not going to have last turn, so you're going to have to create difficulties. You're going to have to create things they cannot take. And so I think the attitude from first turn and second turn should be pretty different. First turn, I'm pretty happy to start with a weak corner. Second turn, if I see a weak corner, I'm probably not going to play a weak corner of my own. And so, if we pretend they had started with 4, 6, 3, 3, and 9, and it was my turn with this hand, one move I would strongly consider would be something like 1A, 7, 7, and 7. Maybe not that exactly, but my point would be, usually they're going to have to play at the top of the board to avoid giving away any lock-ins. And if they do so, I might follow up in 4, and my point is, they probably don't have to capture an 8. So I'm putting out a number I know is high, intending to force them to deal with it at a later point. Now, maybe those exact numbers aren't, the ones that would work, but that's sort of a common notion, I think. So here, there's the 2 formational options, Q and Z. I really like not doing either. I quite like going in 3 in these positions. Because what I find is, if they don't have the combo where they can't take me, I have a huge advantage. If they can take me but don't have the combo, I still get the card in 2, and I don't feel I'm behind at all. And even if they combo me, I have, stuff on 5, and I can get back some of the damage. So I feel it's the move that sort of, if I set up a Q, first of all, I have to flip the card in 5, and having the card in 5 be their color so I have potential combos later is something I really like. So I think I'm just... And I can also play an 8. I don't find Zs are great in closed combo. I think in this setup, most often, I'm going to go in 3, and I would recommend 3 being the main move here. And I don't quite know how to justify saying it, so I've tried. But I'm intending to follow up with, even if they take in 6, I go in 4, I have a decent sweeper for the bottom. If they can combo me, so be it, I lose, but they kind of have to combo me twice. They have to have something for me in 3, and then when I play in 4, they have to be able to take that from below 2. And because they have to take me from below twice, it is also possible I'm running their hand out of upward power. Incidentally, I liked their move in 2. I think if you look at that 2-6-1-2, if they put that in 3, they probably lose on the spot to a move in 7. The X, with all the numbers on stuff right now facing out being so weak, makes it just really easy for me to have a triple capture at the end that is winning. And especially on these split level sets, like even more than normal, you have to play moves that create challenge when you're on second turn. And so, probably a good sign they haven't played immediately, because it means they might not have the combo. But really important to play moves that challenge, and I think like a typical mistake sometimes when you play like level 1 in 10 randoms is some people on second turn will allow X's, playing out their weak cards and hoping their strong cards are good, but you have strong cards left as well, and they're just going to take all the little numbers from the level 1s, and it's just so easy to win on first turn that way. And I think that's a very common mistake, so I think the opponent did a good move going in 2 from a kind of general perspective of I think you should not go in 3 or 7, and if you do, it should be a high number card facing out. But I am someone who doesn't like allowing X's on second turn. Interesting. So if I go in 6, I just lock things in. Specifically, if I play 6, 7, 4, 4, and 6, I have 3 cards locked in. And unluckily for them, they gave me the combo for 6, 8, 6, 5, and 8. So this is just a forced win. But in all these situations, we got to start gaming out options once we get to the last 3 moves. Great players may do so sooner, but here I see this as a forced win because it's equal right now. They can only grab 1 card. If they do, I have a double capture in 4. If they go in 4, I have at least 1 capture, so I know this is a win. So nice to start off with a win in a video where I'm attempting to seem authoritative. Closed is not as high variance as some people think, but game to game, very different things can happen. You can always get very unlucky with a combo. We had first turn, which is a big advantage, especially on these split level rule sets, because it means second turn loses some options. Like as I said, I don't think they should ever go for an X on these split level sets. So this game, the first stage, Synergy, was more me just putting out stuff I knew I could overpower. On a set that was a specific level, it would have been more about Synergy, because your cards are going to have similar numbers to the other cards around, so they're going to need to have Synergy to be able to have the captures. With this big level variety, you won't need Synergy to capture stuff, and putting out low numbers on first turn is a very useful strategy. So we get our win. The second phase of the game was kind of setting up how to challenge them, and that was my move in 3. Force them to have it. If they do have it, and you'll notice 8-7-4-2, they could have played in 6, but that would have left them very vulnerable to combos, and I did have ways to set up on their card in 5. Something I should have mentioned, if they went in 6 with 8-7-4-2 on the move 6 of the game, then I would have won with 6-7-7-4 and 7, because 6-8-6-5 would have the combo in both 4 and 8. It would have the same plus and 8 we saw in the game, and in 4 it would still have the plus wall. So I think playing in 3 in those setups can be a very challenging move for opponents to deal with, and was there a tricky thing for them to handle. So hopefully we get a game quickly. And then third, gaming out the 50-50s. There we didn't have a 50-50, but I was gaming it out, right? I was saying, how many cards do I have locked? What is the score? Do I have both squares? How can I have enough damage in both squares to get at least a tie and hopefully a win? I tend to play a bit towards the cautious direction, where, you know, if there's one thing where sometimes I win, sometimes I lose, and the other one where I know I at least tie and very occasionally I win, I tend to take the safe option. On the other hand, you should pay attention to what's happened through the game, because it's not always a guessing game. You do have a lot of information you could have picked up depending on how they play. Alright, wonderful. We got a game versus Alamar. So we're going to wish him best of luck. We got first turn. And here, we're sort of between those 3 starter types. So one half-strong corner I notice is something like Quistis in 9. Right, the 2 is very easy to take, the 9 might prove challenging to them, and 5, 6, 7A can recapture. Though I don't like having A facing towards 5, because that means potentially I'll have trouble taking that back. But that is sort of a move of that type that jumps out at me. However, I tend to like center plays, and I'm going to be looking for what's the center play with the most synergy. I notice I have multiple A7, 6, 5 type cards, and if I put either of them in 5, the other has the same wall and a number which it's the same facing as is facing out. And that's pretty powerful in setting up future synergies. I'm going to think a little about which one I want to do, but I think I will be choosing one of those two cards. Neither of them are actually everything I wanted from this. Do I have any other synergistic ways to play? Not that I'm immediately seeing. Which is more redundant with my hand? Not necessarily super clear to me. I think I'm going to go Pinello, because I notice Quistis also has 4, and also Godot, potentially with the 7-2, has plus walls and a 10 facing up if he happens to play something in 9. Thought maybe there might be a little more this way. I don't really have a follow-up here. One possibility is I could play Godot 8A2, 7, and 1, and that plays really well with Rufus. That might be a nice setup potential. What else do we have for setups? Not a ton, I admit it, but you know, we take the synergies we have and then we see what they play and try to build out more. I also notice Quistis in 3, where Rufus in 4 works well and Rufus in 2 works well enough. So that seems like another potentially viable plan. I also notice after Quistis in 3 that Vane in 2 is a plus, and so that's always nice to have. Do we see any more interesting setups? Godot in 9 could be interesting. Vane then has a combo in 8, and Rufus has a combo in 6. So there's some potential, and usually there will be in hands like this. A couple other things to note. It's nice to have cards that have the same number facing towards your starter, both because they can often play off it, but also because by having the numbers match each other, you can avoid getting things comboed back. And so that can be very nice to have. Alright, so Vane is now really good, right? Often when they play moves and you've set up a starter where you have some cards that can play off it, they play moves that further set you up. Obviously they have no way of knowing. But this is also a card that is easy for us to take, which we like seeing when we're on first turn. Now, we remember which were my cards that were potentially good for 3. I thought Quistis was a card that potentially went well in 3. And I kind of want to keep Vane for either 4 or 8. And Rufus is my card that sort of in general plays best off my starter. So I would like to use Godot or Quistis at this point. And I tend to go for the slash setups more than the J's. So I tend to go 3 here more than I would go 2 or 6. I think there are very good reasons to go 2 or 6, but you know, something like Godot in 6 might make sense, where Rufus has good recaptures both ways and a combo from one side. But I don't really think... I think I'm just going to go for the synergy play. I think there's other ways to play, but I'm trying to showcase a kind of straightforward and I think pretty good style. So we're going to just go Quistis in 3. We are just playing first turn. Note, I would not be putting out such weak numbers in general if I was on second turn. I think we should be pretty happy to see Dal's first move in 7. Now, I don't know his hand, so it easily could have been, you know, a thing that made a lot of sense, and he has really good setups off. Maybe he has, you know, much to his chagrin, a card like Cloud, which now has a really good recapture in 4, which I can't deal with, and has the same in 8, you know, something like that. But it is a card that had the same wall in 4, so it is a pretty big concession for him to use it up unless he has redundancy there. And in general, again, second turn at some point will need to challenge. Now, I think their first move should be a bit more, especially how I'm talking about closed right now, about synergy rather than challenging, and he can look to challenge this turn. And I think what he should do is go in one of the side squares, not one of the corners. I think the corners will let me keep setting up. I will be very happy to play Godot in either 1 or 9 against basically any corner he does, and very likely win that game. Because, if I go Godot in 1, Rufus is fantastic. If I go into Godot in 9, Rufus is fantastic. I really want to see a corner play here. I think the X is really strong here, and I think, generally speaking, second turn players should not allow nearly as many X's as they do. Also, from his perspective, I have played the cards in 1 and 5, and I played 5 before he played 7. So he doesn't know that I have good stuff to do with his card in 7, and so he should probably be thinking maybe I have a little preference towards blocking 2 or 6, which are squares I'm likely to have good moves in, rather than blocking 4 or 8, moves I'm not likely to have good squares in. So he allowed the X, and I think this will be quite strong. Notably, Rufus does not have the triple capture in 2. Vane will have the triple capture in both 4 and 8. So any move, if I go in 9, any move in 2 or 6, I can meet with the other one and I win by force because I have the triple capture. And there's no combo threats. I guess actually if he goes in 2 and I go in 6 and he has a way to combo Godot that doesn't leave him vulnerable in other ways, it's possible he has ties in 2. But basically I have 6 in response there. And if he goes in 4 or 8, I might have to be a little careful there. There are ways to lose that one. But I think this is got to be pretty strong. I have really good synergy. I have good cards in the squares. Vane is fantastic in 4 or 8, so I'd love to see him move in 2 or 6. And again, he probably should play in 2 or 6 because, and then I want to play in the other and leave Vane open for the combo squares. But he probably should because those are the squares I've set up, and he should force me to play in the squares he's set up. But I also think he's tended to play weak numbers out facing, and that is very risky to do on second turn, because if I can set up an X like this, it's easy for me to have triple captures at the end of the game. So I think this is a pretty dangerous spot for him, and while I guess there is a conceivable path where I lose this, where he goes specifically, I think, in 2. Maybe there's a play in 6 or 8 as well. But this I think is very dangerous. If he goes 8, I play Vane in 6. So the other dangerous one's in 6, because Vane in 8 is not as clean, because I can't combo Pinello both ways with Rufus. Alright, he went in 2. So one thing that jumps out immediately is Vane in 4, which was not the plan at all, but does lock in 1 and 2. But because Vane in 4 combos extra stuff, Rufus in 6 is now the win. And this should be something, good close players figure out. And if not, look at this position for a while and figure out why Rufus is a forced win in 6. Because I think this is a kind of important spot to get right. We want to put as much pressure as we can, and sometimes we get forced wins. And the reason here is it's 5-5. If they go in 4, I have the double capture in 8, and I win. I'm always going to take more cards. If they go in 8, even if they combo everything and flip 3 cards and have an A facing up, so even if they have Cloud, even if he does have Cloud and plays Cloud in 8 and flips 3 things and goes up 8-2, I'm going to flip 4 things back because I combo Kyros in 4. And I don't think he made any, anti-positional moves or moves that were clearly wrong, but I think on second turn, you just have to give more trouble than allowing an X where you have kind of low numbers facing out. I think it's too easy for first turn to win. And so we'll save the game. And so I think the synergy strategy looking good so far. And of course, first turn is much easier to play than second, but as Bren has complained, I have hacked the website today and I keep getting first turns against everyone, so that's just very nice for me. Been on a big win streak today in close. Close has been going very well for me. But I think, again, thinking of the game as stage 1, synergy. If you're on first turn, that's maybe the first 2 moves of the game, maybe just the first one. Stage 2 of the game, challenging them, finding something to do that exploits the combos, or says, can you take this, like I did in the first game when I played in 3. I said, can you take this? And if you can take this, I have another challenging move ready next time, but you'll have to be able to take that as well. And if you can take both of them, then you'll survive or might even win, but I make it hard for you. Alright, so you get another win. I think I'll try to play one more. Hopefully we'll get a second turn, so even if it goes terribly, or even if it goes well, or whatever, and I lose, I show trying to create some kind of challenge, because I think that's a really important middle game phase of the game. And both of these games, the third phase of the game, has been quite easy, because we were not challenged sufficiently, or because our challenges were successful. They didn't contest our challenges. And so in both games, we didn't have a difficult 50-50 to figure out, because what could have been a 50-50, they have to guess which square we had covered. We just had both, and the game is over. So, again, hopefully we get a game. Ah, we did get a game. And we're first turn again. Okay, so this video will be, playing first turn and closed. I've had trouble with Daniel Jackson. I think he's tricky. So, okay, stage 1, synergy. And the first cards I check are kind of the cards I don't like in my hand, the cards I think are worst. So 8-7-9-5 immediately jumps out to me as a less powerful card. I notice 7-8-5-7 has the same wall in 6 if I chuck it in 5, and potentially can use that 5 as well on the other side to take 10s. For instance, and I'm just seeing this as I say it, if I go 8-7-9-5 and 5, Billy in 7, A9-6-3 and 7, sets up Magus 7-8-5-7 both ways. That looks great. And it's because I'm just noticing there's similar numbers around. 8-7-9-5 and 5, also 5-8-7-8 potentially is the plus wall in 2. This is a lot going for it. I do notice my hand is very rightward oriented, so you could think how to get the game going the way you want and play, for instance, a half-strong corner somewhere that moves the game to the rightward, but I like these center starters. I see a lot of potential synergies. I find this move very appealing. I would like to follow with Billy in 7. We can start brainstorming for further synergies now on their turn. I noticed the Crystal card, 5-8-7-8 and 3, sets up Kuja in 6. That's not both ways, but it's something. And sets up Magus in 6. And each of them has another way to capture it as well. I notice the Crystals in 9 sets up a same in 6 for Magus, so Magus is very likely going to be a card I hold on to. I notice that Billy in 1 sets up Kuja in 2. So I think this hand's going to have a lot of setting up synergies, and we're gonna play this first stage of the game again, looking for synergies. And I expect Daniel Jackson to find interesting ways to challenge us, because different player styles match up differently. Daniel Jackson's a good player, but he's definitely had ways of putting pressure that have been difficult for me to handle in the past. Okay, so we don't have 9, we do have 3. Interestingly, he did not flip 5, and 5, potentially if I flip the card and he can flip 5 back, could be big trouble for us. Now the plan was Billy in 7. Do we actually want to do Billy in 7? Because one of the problems with Billy in 7 is the core problem with all strong corners, which is we can't really play next to it because they combo us to hell. But we have both sides of the combo, and one thing I think is really important against these side plays is I like to play towards the side I can't take. And this is a bit of a giveaway. I'm like, if you see me play in 3 here, then I am less or in 1 here, I'm less likely to have 3 than I am 9. If you see me play in 7 here, I'm less likely to have to move in 9 than I do 3. But I think it does orient the game a bit more so that they innately cover that side rather than me having to cover that side, which again is a move I don't have. I also think the game is quite likely to end up in a Z of some kind, and Billy's the card, specifically if I play in 7, if cards land in 3 and 4, or if cards land in 8 and 9, or something like that, the game becomes side to side really quickly, and Billy is my worst card in those kind of settings. So I have Magus set up both ways. Again, this was the synergy phase of the game. I go for the highest synergy move. It may set me up to be weak to some combos, so this is when the challenge phase starts. and they're going to find something to challenge me, right? If they stick a card in 8 that doesn't flip anything, or say is a 9 facing up but a low number facing to the left, if I take it, it's an 8. If I take it from 9, they can go in 4 if they can combo Billy and combo stuff back, right? They're going to find some way to start making it difficult for me and making it so that if I want to take things, it's going to be punished. And we're going to have to find a way to challenge that back. And what we're probably going to end up doing in that kind of situation is making the game really left-right, because our 5-8, 7-8 is really strong in that situation, as are the rest of the cards in our hand. So I don't mind seeing that. I think I'm well designed for the standard way for them to challenge us. And if they do not challenge us, if they do not address the 4 or 8 squares, Magus is going to be amazing there at the end. I would really like them to flip the card in 5, though. If they never flip the card in 5, though, that's where our troubles might be. And they have so far not touched it while blocking off one of its weaker sides, so it's very possible they will never touch our card in 5, which would be a shame for me. But again, this is sort of the 3 phases I see in closed combo and how I think about them, and hopefully this is a useful example to someone. Again, I don't make any claim to be the best or fantastic or anything at this format of the game, but I was asked to make a video on closed combo, and I thought I was running really well today. I think I'm playing pretty well and seeing stuff and setting things up well, and I thought I could provide a decent video with some ideas to it. And that mentioned ideas I wasn't necessarily using myself. I think the half-strong corner, you will see like so many of the best players doing right now. I think that is really not just a fad, but like maybe people have really found something correct to do. And it's really interesting to go just like watch Amo play 5 randoms and just see how he starts, and then think about how his cards work around that and try to learn from that. Because I think there's a lot. Okay, so they have challenged us again. This is a card we cannot take. Now, I do not really want to play in 4 or 8, because those are my combo squares. So this is a little tricky. One thing I could do is play... I was thinking one thing I could do is I could play Kuja in 1. Then I would set up a threat in 2. That's a pretty good threat. If they block 2, I could then play crystals in 9, and I have the combos in both squares. But if they don't flip 5, I just lose, because I haven't taken anything and they can take the extraneous stuff. I could accept it's just a side-to-side game and play in 4, but I hate that if they combo Billy, I'm in so much trouble. I don't like the cues. I could go in 9. 9 is one way to try to be challenging. But here, if they can go in 8 without flipping stuff, if they have to flip stuff, I'm in great shape. If they don't have to, might not even be in that great shape, because some of my combo squares get blocked. So, I'm thinking I might have to block, I might have to go in 1. Try to set up a threat in 2, and hope they have to flip stuff. The problem with Kuja there is I can't actually retake Kuja from 4, but they're unlikely to flip Kuja, because they're very vulnerable if they do. That looks like the trap, because then I really do combo that card. I'm trying to leave 4 and 8 open. I think they played well. Again, Daniel Jackson often really has my number, plays very well. Okay, so my goal is to see a move in 9. I think if they play a move in 9, I get to go crystals in 2, and Magus is the combos, and I win. So I win against moves in 9. I know I have both sides of that 50-50. If they go in 2, they're unlikely to flip anything. They'll probably try to play there without flipping anything. And then I have the choice between crystals in 9, where I have the combos everywhere, but if they can take Kuja or crystals without flipping 5, I lose. Or I can play in 4 and ask them, what do you got in 8? And if they have it, I lose, and if they don't have it, I do okay. So 2's pretty scary. I'd probably lose against a play-in too. Maybe I should have more strongly considered Kuja and 8 that turn, setting out 9, but I think they just block 9 and I don't have a ton of play there. It's not that I saw. I'm not sure. I think they've played this really nicely. They said, can you take my card in 3? I couldn't, and so they had a big advantage. And this was the exact point in the game. The first move, they set up some potential synergy, played a card they wanted to play, played a card that meant my starter, if they ever needed to combo back, potentially could. And then on move 4, they went for the challenge. They went for, can you take this or can you not? If you can, you're way ahead. If you can't, I'm way ahead. And they are now ahead. And even if I could take it, isn't that terrible for them, right? Like, let's say Kuja had an 8 facing down, so could take it from 2. Maybe they have a good move in 1 after that, and then they ask me, can you take this? And if I can't take that either, or if I could take the first but can't take that, they could still be in a pretty good shape. So they do go in 2, but they couldn't do it without flipping stuff. So now we have a lot more hope. So if we play crystals in 9, they can take Kuja, and we're going to take 2 cards back when we flip an 8. But if they have to flip Billy as well, we win. And if they go in 8, we win. So I think crystals in 9, we guarantee at least a tie, and we have some winning chances. Their only way to not lose is they have to be able to take Kuja with at least a 5 facing towards 5 while not flipping Billy. Though, of course, if they have like a 7-5-A6, like Pinello, as you can see, that card would work too. But mostly, they'll need like at least a 7 up, at least a 5 to the right, probably more, at least an 8 up, a 5 to the right, and not flip the card below it in one of their 2 cards. There's a pretty good chance they have that. Do we have anything better than that? No, we don't. So this puts them in a 50-50. And I try not to do this intentionally too much, but because we took a little while thinking about it, it really looks like we might not have both squares, and that can be worth taking a little longer. Like, because I tend to take a little while in closed on all decisions, spending a little extra time on easy decisions, if it's not a guaranteed win, can be a good thing to do so they don't know that it was actually an easy decision. And one nice thing about this move is it may look like I've just set up 8, in which case they might be more obliged to block 8, which is what we want to see. But I think they'll probably block 4 and get the tie, but I think that's something like we tie this, 60% and win this 40, which is pretty good. I have no idea if that's the real odds. I've never done closed math to any detail. They do. Nice. Well played. Good game. I say good game. I think they played this very nicely. Again, they found a way to challenge us. And even then, we had enough synergy. We were in good enough shape to pull a tie with some winning chances. So I guess this video's gone on a bit. Hopefully this is useful to someone in terms of playing closed combo. Again, I know there are better players. I'd be really curious to hear what better players think I did wrong in this video. I think potentially there are a bunch of starters people would question because they tend not to like the center starters as much. But I'd be curious where people believe I made mistakes, because I'm sure I did. And I would like to be a better closed player. And I would like to, for instance, hear the arguments for these half-strong corners or weak corners versus these center starters, because I think the center starters do pretty well, and I find that usually the most appealing option. So anyways, to quickly recap, the core game plan here was turns 1 through 3, we're aiming for synergy. So that's 1 through 3 out of 9. So, the first 2 moves for the first turn player, or the first turn for the second move player. The second phase is moves 4, 5, and 6, maybe just 4 and 5, but usually 4, 5, and 6, where you find ways to create a challenge. And the final part is figuring out these open squares, which one are they likely to have. And useful tools there that we didn't really get into are what things did they set up and which did I set up. They're more likely to have stuff in squares that they set up rather than ones where I played the move that sets up the diagonal. Things like that. So those are the 3 core phases, and I think in the first 2 games we saw opponents who did not really create that challenge for us. Like, either we created the challenge for them, the thing where we said, you have to take this, or it was never created, and we just got last turn and set up enough synergy that we had the wins. In this third game, our opponent said, you have to be able to take this 10. I couldn't take it. Then they locked in a card in 2, which locked in their card in 3, and then they found their way to a tie. I think played really nicely. I think that was kind of an exemplary way of handling second turn in closed combo. And I didn't get to play second turn, but I'm happy with that because second turn is difficult. But I think that third game really shows both what I'm trying to do on first turn and what a good what a really well played game by an opponent looks like, where I'm unable to obtain the advantage I want because they found a way to say you have to take this, and if you can, they had ways to follow that up. If I had taken that card in 2, if I was able to, they would have played their 3A87 in 1 or A595 in 1 and said you have to take that. And I wouldn't have had that up power either. I couldn't overpower either. I could plus the 3A87, but the point is, I didn't necessarily have ways to deal with their next challenge either. So the challenge phase, really important. I just came up with these terms for it, so feel free to completely ignore the terms. But to reiterate one last time, first phase, synergy. First 3 moves of the game. First 2 moves for the first turn player, first move for the second turn player. Challenge phase, moves 4 through 6, the next 2 moves for the second turn player, and the third move for the first turn player, really setting up where's the difficulty for the opponent going to be. For the first turn player, this is often leaving open combos. For the second turn player, this is often sliding cards next to places you intend to combo later. Sliding meaning putting a card next to something with higher values facing it, so if the opponent takes it, you can combo and flip back, things like that. And then the final phase of the game, figuring out which are my combo squares, leaving them open, which card do I need to hold open, which squares do I need to block off. And then trying to piece together the game so you can figure out how's the 50-50 going to go, which cards are they likely to have. So really hope this was helpful to someone. That's my attempt to play closed combo. I can try to make more of this content if people like it. And as always, it's wonderful to have Triple Triad advance back.